Hi, Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time of this today and coming to this episode. I really appreciate it. How are you doing
No,
today?
thanks. Good. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, calling in from Sarasota, Florida at the moment.
Yeah. I'm in the UK, so obviously technology made it so much easier to get to know each other, and also doing the show is it's like a fascinating, to be honest. Otherwise, I have to flee to like America and do the actual call. Yeah, it's made it so much easier. So today we're going to talk about businesses, ups and downs, also going through like a bankruptcy and like having a lowest moment while you're running a business, and also like a mental health for like entrepreneurs, which you are passionate to talk about. So before
I
we
am.
get into all of them, I would love to know more about you, and our audience would love to know more about you. Like how long you've been as an entrepreneur and what actually motivated to become an entrepreneur.
Hmm. Well, it's interesting. If you come from a really small town, and this is
Mm,
back before the internet, back in the 1700s or whenever it was,
yeah.
you you don't get exposed to anything. And when I was growing up, there was just this underlying assumption that you either go to college or you work at a factory. That was
Yeah.
it. That was the basic storyline there. And my dad was actually an engineer who had turned into a they used him as the sales arm for the
Yeah.
machinery that they did. And in fact, the company he worked for, I remember, yeah, he was actually in Europe for a while selling
Right.
these large truck pieces. But the thing that captivated me as a youth was that he would travel. And
Hmm.
this is back when, people didn't travel that much. The airplane, he would drive everywhere.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. 50, 60, 70,000 miles a year on his 1968 Ford Mustang. And he would come back from these places. And it was the most intrigued I could be as a kid was what was it like? Where'd you
Yeah.
go? Who did you see? So I really got the travel bug early on. But I also kind of got like, wow, I got to go to college.
Yeah.
And I hated school. I was one of those people that I couldn't figure out. It never made sense to me why we were learning
Hmm.
all the things we were learning, the history, the complex math. I couldn't
Yeah.
figure out why we were doing it. And so it was a very frustrating, very depressing time for me. And again, coming from a very small town, I thought, man, the life is really miserable. And then I went on to do more misery. And, I got into a college in Wisconsin. And there I am walking back and forth to classes, completely unhinged, thinking, I'm living in I don't know what this is about.
Yeah.
So it was actually sitting down with somebody. I lived in a 13-story dorm at the time, and I was on the 12th floor. And I remember one night we're supposed to be studying for an engineering class, and it was like studying for like Mars or something. I had no idea what the heck I was doing. And I remember peering out of the window and thinking I
This is
could
not
end
for me.
all.
Yeah.
Well, more. I remember thinking I could end all this. It was
Right.
I could be out of this confusion.
Hmm.
And literally the next day, I met someone at lunch who had traveled and was going to stop college. And I locked onto that person. Like I
Yeah.
said, I mean, there's life outside of college. Anyways, make a long story short, I dropped out of college and I ended up following his lead. I got a job at a summer camp. I was
Hmm.
like, oh my God, you can do things without a college degree. I'm all over this. And then I met another person
Yeah.
who talked about traveling or overseas. And I was like, why did you do that? And he says, well, I was a carpenter and I bought an old house and I fixed it up. And I was like, I'm doing that. So, I mean, that's how I did it. I, I was really, really shy as a kid,
Yeah.
but I had nothing to lose because
Right.
everything else other than
Yeah.
following, some kind of passion was
Hmm.
misery to me. And I was willing to risk what?
Everything.
Everything. I didn't
Yeah.
care. And I also quickly learned that I didn't care how I looked. This was back when, I mean, I hitchhiked everywhere. I didn't have enough money for a car or anything. So anyways, to make a long
Yeah.
story short, I ended up in Wyoming after a couple of years. And this is back when there was a boom going on. And a friend said, I'm going to teach you carpentry. There's a boom going on. Within 6 months, I was running my own crew. I quickly figured out that I had a skill that I couldn't figure out why bosses were so mean and so like disorganized. And I realized,
Yeah.
all you have to do is uplift people. You uplift people around you and they're like happy. And I wanted to be happy during this. So anyway, 6 months later, I was running my own crew and doing things and falling asleep at night, learning about how to do, ridge rafters and
Yeah.
how to pour concrete and stuff like that. And we did it. And I had this idea. I want to travel overseas for years and do this really amazing adventure. I'm going to need some money. So
Yeah.
I figured out, that the whole idea of leveraging, you buy something, you fix it up and you sell it for more and you paid for it. That was like a new concept, but I saw someone else do that. So I called my dad. I said, Dad, I want to buy this old house. And he was like, he's a very conservative guy. He goes, I don't know, son. I said, Dad, he said, you got to pay me back. And, it was one of those. And I, of course, was like, man, I'm going to pay you back every month before the date. And I did. And anyways, I bought this old house. Oh, it was a piece of junk. And every night after work and the weekends, I'd fix it up. Anyways, 18 months later, I sold it for $15,500 profit. Wow. Now, this was 79. I'm 60. Your audience needs to know I'm 65 years old. So I've been, and I think there's some, I've been around the block. I've been doing this a long time. And with that money, at $15,000, by the way, I looked it up recently, and that's worth about $58,000 in today's money. I took off and ended up traveling around the world, hitchhiking around the world for 3 years.
Right.
For 3 years. And I did all the adventures that I wanted to do.
What
I had
happened to your business that time? Did you shut it down? Or?
My business, I was just a carpenter, so I didn't do it. I didn't have anything. So anyways, that was the idea. That was where I got the impetus. Like, I really want to work for myself, and I can work for, but I really liked the idea that I could be the guy that could put the ideas together and get people and make money. Building a business. And that was a big eye opener, realizing, if you work for yourself, you have to come up with the business, but you can make more money. So that was really it. And then when I got back, while I was overseas, and I did things that were, that you only do in National Geographic magazines. At one point I was on a 41-foot sloop out south of the tip of South Africa, fighting a force 9 storm. We were out there for 92 days with a crew of 4 people. I had never sailed, had no idea, but it was one of the things I wanted to do. And so we ended up going to all the islands around Madagascar, and I would just open up a map to Madagascar, and you realize there's all these tiny islands, Reunion, Mauritius. In the north, there's Ile de Mayotte, was a tiny little island, 50 people. It's just incredible. It was way, way out there. I hitchhiked across the Nullarbor Desert. I met people, and when you're by yourself, that was the other thing. And this was kind of, if you want to know, the formation. And I think it's something that is lacking in people a lot today, is the ability to step out of your comfort zone. When you travel around the world by yourself, your objective isn't to travel around the world by yourself. Your objective is to meet people and to bump into situations that turn into opportunities. And all of a sudden you're at a party and you meet these cool people, and you say, man, you should come hang out with this, and you should come do scuba diving. Really? How do you do that? And I had to force myself to do that. And as a shy kid, that was why I was doing it. It was like jumping into the fire. But I loved people. I wanted to be confident. I wanted to know how to do this. And there were moments when I just had to say, tomorrow morning, you got to wake up, Scott, and do this and go here, and then learn what it's like to be rejected and try it again and learn that. And so that's what I did. And every day I realized, wow, I'm actually getting good at being with people. And I will just say, this is a little off topic, but one of the skills entrepreneurs have to learn is how to be curious. I am shocked at the number of parties that I go to. My wife and I just had this conversation that we go to parties or get-togethers and so forth, and we're baffled by the lack of curiosity that people don't ask. What do you do? Oh, how did you do that? Where did you go from there? They're all they can do is talk about themselves.
Yeah.
And I don't know how, as an entrepreneur, you can
Not
succeed.
to be curious. Yeah.
Yeah. You got to learn. I mean, and develop it. It's not like, I wasn't born with curiosity. Bullshit. You've got that. It's an innate thing. Kids watch kids. They're like watching, like with their eyes open and going, what the heck did I get landed in? You know?
Yeah. And they ask questions all the time, right?
All the time, for God's sake. So I would highly suggest to people, the next time you go to a party, just do nothing but curiosity the whole night. Stop talking about yourself. Ask people. And not only, this is the other thing too, when people get curious, they go, what do you do? And so the person says, well, I'm a banker. And so the person also often goes, oh, well, ask them how did you get into it? What do you do during the day? What's that like?
Yeah.
I read an article about, the banking industry and this and this. And what do you think about that? You dive into it, because that's their world. And in fact, even if they're bored with their job, having somebody ask those questions, it's like they know it's their wheelhouse. Ask them. You will learn so much. And I'll tell you, that person will go home and go, that was actually kind of a nice party. Yeah. And they may not equate it to that someone finally got them to open up. They may be unconscious of it, but that's what happened. So anyway, so that's what I did. And I came back, and I had bumped into a bunch of people in different countries. I was in South Africa, in France, in Australia. I met people who were into natural health, and I took to that like, man, white on rice. I was so interested in that you could transform your body. You could increase the amount of time you could improve your health by changing your blood, by changing, the whole food, the diet, disease connection. And I was fascinated by it. And this is back when, the books that were describing that you could count them on two hands. It was like nothing. So when I came back, I was broke. I had spent all my money, and the economy wasn't doing so good. So I had to kind of figure out like how to start over. And in fact, at the age of 27, I came back at 27, I was washing dishes in Steamboat Springs, Colorado. And I remember thinking, boy, talk about knocking myself off of a high horse. And I will just say, I mean, there was no work in this town, no work. And I was flat broke. I was in Steamboat Springs, Colorado, and there was the back door of one of the ski area restaurants was open. And I walked in, and there were a couple of pot smoking, guys on the line. And I said, hey, are you guys looking for work? And one goes, yeah, there might be something here, And he said, why don't you come by tomorrow morning at around 8 o'clock? We're going to need someone to wash this. I said, I'll do anything, and I came in there, and the boss came in, and he saw me, and he says, we just aren't hiring. And I blurted out, Russell. I said, I will work for free, in really a loud tone. I remember I said, I will work for free for a week to show you I can transform this kitchen. Yeah. And I'd never done anything like that in my life. But I'll never forget. And he and I became good friends because I worked there for 18 months. I ran the whole kitchen. And I ran it so well that I could do it kind of part-time, because I was interested in other things. And I'll never forget. He stepped back and he goes, I can't beat that. That day, I was on the ceiling, washing the ceiling. It was like I wanted to clean from one corner all the way out. Anyway, that was like within 2 weeks, I was a line chef. I did not want to work in a kitchen, but I was broke. And within, I was running that whole kitchen. I was recreating the recipes, doing all that stuff. And believe me, it was humbling, but at the same time, I needed to get going. So anyways, at the end of that, I went and enrolled in actually a nutritional school and out in Boston. And at the time, there's only like 2 natural, schools out there. So anyways, all that. And then I got done with that school. I ended up working for a superfood company that was great. I I didn't know how to sell anything. But at the time, Tony Robbins was brand new, and I read a couple of his books and got really motivated by that. And in fact, an interesting story: the guy who gave I was a guy gave me a book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
Yeah, I've read the book. Yeah.
And I returned it to him. No, it was actually when I was at work. I was laying there, and the guy came by. He was a chiropractor, and he came by and he said, "Hey, wow, how did you think of it?" And I basically poo-pooed the book. I thought it was just full of, I don't know.
Yeah.
And he read me the riot act. I'd never had anybody do that. I'd never had anybody dress me down. And I was so taken back, and I was so angry that someone would do that. But he basically said, "You have no idea what an arrogant thing you just said. This is a guy who's transformed people's lives. I just handed you something that could transform your life. And you what? Criticized it from your position of like what?" And I was so embarrassed and so red in the face, and I didn't have any words. I was humiliated. I mean, there was people outside in the hall hearing him. It just, I just thought, screw this guy. And it took me about a week later, to realize he was right. And it was a very, very big turning point in my life to realize it is so easy to be the arrogant asshole criticizing things, a movie, there's people who've put together, $60 million and actors doing the best. And they just go, you walk, I didn't, And, and that is death to an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
You have to look again. It's about curiosity. So what was in there? What is it? I mean, this is good. These are people at the peak of their game. This is something that others have found value in it, and they're doing a lot better than you, Scott. And so I went back to him. I said, "I want to apologize. And I really hear what you're saying. May I borrow the book again?" He says, "You got to go out and buy your own copy." And he says, I want to give you a suggestion. Mm-hmm. You need to get it now. This is again pre-internet, so this is going to sound like you got to get I sound like an old guy, but I want you to put this into modern times. He said, you get a yellow highlighter every time. First of all, every time you read a sentence and it doesn't click, guess what? You got to go back and read the sentence. Just don't turn the page until you grasp, and then you got to pretend as if this is being written for you, no one else. He wrote it specifically for you. Now, I'm not saying that book is the book that everybody should go out and read. There's other things. The idea is, if someone has gold and they're trying to get it through to your brain, you have to remove your hubris, you're better than now. A lot of it's unconscious. You don't even know you're being a jerk. But you're being critical of information that someone's trying to get through to you. And it was a life-changing event, because I would read a page and I'd have to go back and read it again, and then I'd get it. And then I'd have to sit back and really let the cellular transformation of what they were trying to tell me in. And it was like I was taking drugs. Mm-hmm. I'd be transformed. And I just became this.
How old are you that time?
My late 20s.
Okay.
Yeah, late 20s.
So just when you had the job in the kitchen, right?
I had moved on. I'd gotten out of the nutritional school. I was helping this company sell their superfood product. And that's about when that's where I was in my life. So I was in my early 30s at that time.
Okay. Yeah.
And then once that got it, then I would pick up any book and I'd do the same thing. I would tear it apart. I would tear the pages apart. I'd underline things. I'd take notes. And I learned that, for me anyways, in order to absorb information, I needed to oftentimes say it out loud, whether it was silently, but I would have to form the words. I'd have to underline it. I'd go back and take pencil and underline it. And then I'd write it. And then and then the other thing too, I was at the time Tony Robbins talked about the power of movement while you're being transformed. He says, you got to move your
Yeah.
body in order to integrate the information. So I'd walk back and forth. I mean, I remember I was like wearing out the carpet in this small office that I was at, because I'd go back and forth reading these affirmations and reading these statements until they really felt like I'd owned them.
Mhm.
And in a way, it's no different than, someone who does a sport
Yeah.
or, a card trick or anything. It's muscle memory. It's, you have to get it, and, or learning the words to a long poem or something. You have to just practice it over and over and over, or like a martial art movement. The first 1,000 times you do it, you suck. And then all of a sudden it just starts locking in. So that was all part of, my transformation. And so I actually, went from the shy, guy with this superfood company to being their keynote trainer.
Yeah.
They're in the top 5% income earners. I was earning, this is the mid 90s now we're up to. I was earning over $500,000 a year. This is in 96. That's like almost $1 million in today's money.
Yeah, it could be more than that. Yeah.
It could be.
Yeah.
It could be. And so, that was that, and then the idea
Was
of
a multi-level company? Is a multi-level
was.
marketing? Yeah.
It was. How did you know that?
Because I was part of a multi-level marketing when back in 2015 when I was starting out my career. Like that's how I get to learn like online marketing and stuff. So I was part of ACN.
Yeah.
Yeah.
ACN did very well.
Yeah. But it wasn't something for me. Like I didn't really enjoy it because they changed compensation plans and things like that.
Yeah. That particular form of marketing has its pluses and minuses, and at this point it's really hard to get into it, because it's got kind of a bad appeal to it, which is really too bad. I mean, I've done both types of I've developed products that have been in brick and mortar. I've done just website, and I've also done word of mouth. So affiliate marketing is really powerful because it's word of mouth. It's people taking the product that they love and sharing with others, and the company compensates them in some way of doing it. So I've got no problem with that style, which is but it's not popular right now. But that was what was the model, and it was great because it allowed people in small towns like me to wow, I didn't have college degree to do all this, and suddenly I was making just phenomenal money, and using the technology that was available at the time.
Yeah.
So that's what I did, and then at some point I realized I really wanted to do something on my own, and that's where I developed my first nootropic beverage company. I partnered with a friend. I had seen all of these energy drinks that had come out here. This is the early 2000s now.
Right. Okay.
And energy drinks were taking the world by storm. I mean, it's hard to remember, but at one point, the only thing you ever saw in a 7-Eleven was, soda. And now they take up the entire wall of energy drinks. And with the deep nutritional studies that I'd done, I would look at them and think, well, that's a shame. Why would they put in those things that are actually detrimental to people's health when there were all of these plants and these extracts that have a very strong positive effect on cognition, whether it's focus, getting rid of brain fog, not by tweaking the brain, not by forcing all of your serotonin and your adrenaline out of your body. I mean, that's fun for a day.
Yeah.
But then you have to recover because you've used up your body's supplies of those compounds, those hormones, those neurotransmitters. Well, what if you actually, but people didn't know. And that's classic America. We Americans, unless it is
that time internet was new as well, right? So not many people are searching on Google.
No. And even, look at even today.
Yeah.
Especially in Western culture, and I'm going to just speak for Americans.
Yeah.
Unless it comes from the FDA or it comes from the American Medical Association, it's really suspect. And what a shame, because they're missing out on the gold that is available in nature. There are plants that grow that, when they're properly extracted, actually give the brain an increase in serotonin. Now, serotonin
Mm.
is a very, very complex molecule. We're barely, touching the surface of what it does. But one of the things it does do is give you well-being.
Right.
And to me, well-being is the most underrated biochemical reality of a human being can experience. If you've got well-being,
Mhm.
whatever that is, I get it. It's a nebulous idea, but let's just call it well-being. It's the sense of, I'm glad to be alive.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I can kind of do anything I want. I can start something cool. I can do positive things. I can forward my life. I can forward other people's lives. I can make more money. It's that positivity. Well, that's a biochemical reaction going on in your body where, yes, you can create it out of mud, but at the same time, there's biology behind it. It's for the same reason that we don't fall asleep at night just because we decide we're going to fall asleep because we think it's a good idea. There is chemicals in your body going, we're knocking you out, mother. And that's really what it is. It knocks you out. So that was the idea behind the nootropics. And for those who are not familiar with nootropics, it's nootropic. That's how it's pronounced all long O's, nootropic. And it was just a concept developed in 63, 64 by a Romanian chemist working for one of the largest chemical companies out there, and he created this compound that was very, very effective for turning the brain on, for focus, mental clarity. It was called piracetam for anyone who's interested in that kind of history, and so that kind of created that genre. Well,
right.
We were the first ones to come out with a non-caffeinated nootropic, and the Whole Foods, which at the time was the holy grail of all natural foods, grabbed us and took us and said, you guys got something. And in fact, if you go into Whole Foods today, I'm going to take credit for it. They now you'll see functional beverages. You'll see the name. Well, back in 2008, when we, first presented our brain tonic to it, our can, there was no such thing. And they were really intrigued. Non-caffeinated, it was all herbs and quite effective. And so we ended up selling, we ended up in every Whole Food store here and in Europe. We were selling in 14 other natural health food stores. We got interest in the Ukraine. They flew us over there to give presentations on, brain and plant chemistry. And, I was really, really cool. And I was in Russia there for a conference. It was awesome. And then the Ukrainian-Russian, what would you call it, conflict happened. And we lost everything. And it was one of those things like, you got to be kidding me. I thought big historical events that, crash economies only happen to other people. Well, it happened to us. So that was all in between 2007 and 2015. And it was really great. And, and then we eventually had in 2015 we pulled the plug. We were losing money, and you talked about the crash.
So he was running the company for like nearly 15 years, right? From early
more like 8 years.
8 years, right? Okay. Yeah. And so you started losing money in 2015.
We were losing money. We were losing money for quite a while, and back then, this is if you want to talk about the lessons learned. It wouldn't it be great if you could go back and tap yourself on the shoulder and go, "Don't do this, don't do that, do this and do that, and everything's going to be great." But hindsight is it would be great. Hindsight is 2020. I forget what the phrase is, but that was one of our errors. Was that we didn't know what we were doing. And I just, this is, again, I'm jumping into the fire and I go, I want to create a beverage company. I had no idea how to do manufacturing. I didn't know. Do you have to buy your own cans? Did you have to buy your own factory? Do you buy your own warehouse? Do you need 40 people? What was it? And the first time someone said to me the idea of outsourcing, I remember looking up outsourcing, like it was like, oh, I see. You can actually hire companies that are experts at that exact thing, whether it's making boxes or
Mickey
or
bottles.
fulfillment, where
Yeah.
you send the product and they ship it off to everybody. It was like a brainstorm to me. I thought, wow, this is awesome. And sure enough, that's the way we did it. We were kind of not revolutionary, that's a little bragging, but we made the decision early on that we wanted to stay as clean and simple as possible, and then
Mhm.
hire out and do all these things. And that's what we did.
Right.
But the mistake we made was when this was this was this is the mid 2000s, and the internet was really just kind of starting up, and internet commerce was just starting up.
Right.
I don't
Yeah.
know when Amazon started, but it was somewhere around there. And so my instinct told me, do not do the brick and mortar, because number one, it stayed, it's
Yeah.
very old. But more important to people listening is that they took the lion's share of every dollar that we ever brought in.
Hmm.
And it's okay to share your profits with people. It's not okay to take the lion's share, because you're left starving. And that's
Yeah.
exactly what happened. They have it set up. So I'll never forget the term I heard, bridge buying. Oh my
Bridge.
God.
Oh,
Bridge buying. Yeah. This
yeah.
is a fascinating concept. What
Yeah.
what Whole Foods and what other stores like this do is they require you to do sales periodically. And when I first heard that, I
Yeah.
went, yeah, that's good. Drive sales, you increase it. Well, here's what happens. You have sales, I think it was like maybe quarterly or something like that. They had to offer, and you would say, okay, here's our sales. And they go,
Yeah.
that's not enough. You got to be everything. Oh, really? You not 10% off. You want like what? Yeah, 25% off. Oh my gosh. All right, we'll do 25%. So they would purchase
Hmm.
enough for the entire quarter at that deep discount.
Right.
We would be ecstatic, like, all
Yeah.
right, we got a huge order.
Yeah.
We would not hear from them until the next sale.
Wow.
I mean, do the math. You
Yeah.
suddenly realize,
You're losing
oh,
the. Yeah.
this is not our wholesale price. This is our wholesale price. And they get it.
Mm.
So you had no control over that. And it was just a crap model. I mean, God bless them. They do what they do, and obviously, lots of companies that the store's filled with food. But
Yeah.
I walk into any natural health food store, and I just go, man, good luck, guys.
Yeah. You have that
You,
experience, and you know
yeah,
inside out, right?
yeah,
Like I didn't know that, obviously, because I'm not that kind of industry. We are in a digital space. So when it comes down to like wholesale and things like that, especially in grocery store or like superstore, is it like it's a different model. And who done with it, like they will know how many logistics involved, lot of rules and regulation also, like if you're sourcing to a different part of the world. Right now from UK we moved from like a EU, so there is a problem of shortage of lorry drivers as well, and also it delays, like one product is to come like 3 days, right now is coming about 2 weeks, 4 weeks. So
unbelievable.
yeah.
What is your sense of Brexit, that it was a bad thing?
uh I'll say absolutely it is, because now the whole country is realizing it, is everyone's going to be agree with it. The reason being is like a lot of people lost jobs, like European people used to work in UK, so there used to be lots of lorry drivers and different type of workers there. Big companies from Germany, biggest brands and everything, they used to have like a headquarters and everything in London. Right now they moved to their own countries, from Netherlands, Switzerland, and big brands. So a lot of people from UK moved to in European countries to get their job and keep their job. And so obviously you're losing out lots of taxes, you're losing a lot of people from the country, you're losing out a lot of businesses in the same country. And a lot of like commercial units are like emptying in city center in London, a lot of places. Also, when I look for like a logistics ways, there is like a lot of shortages for like a drivers and everything. Uh, everything, the goods cost more right now in UK. Also, shortage of fuel, shortage of food, shortage of drivers, shortage of like workers. So it's everything in the mess at the moment. And also same time is a COVID and everything. So you don't know who to blame right now, because government be like, oh, it's a COVID now and everything's going on. So they try to hide it, what's going to, what's happening with the Brexit and everything. But with my opinion, I think it's not really helped the whole country, because now everyone's realizing it didn't really help the country because of what's going on and everything. So
Yeah,
yeah, we'll see how it happens.
it's interesting to be on the sidelines and look and go, yeah, that didn't look like a good idea.
Yeah, for business perspective, I'll see it's not a good idea as well. So it's a different like right now expense is higher, because one lorry used to come like, let's say in 3 days time from Spain. Right now it's
Yeah,
coming in at 2 weeks, so obviously you have to pay 2 weeks worth of expenses and everything. So good prices goes up, so profit margin is going less, taxes is more, because now it's a different country, European Union. There is like a state tax and every kind of good taxes you have to pay. I'm not a lot of into it because I don't know much about uh, logistics and everything, like I mentioned. So I saw like people are struggling. Some kind of group I'm in, part of like a LinkedIn and also on a Facebook group, and people do overseas businesses with the Europe, US, and they're struggling. I saw like a lot of businesses going bankrupt. Small to medium sized business are really, really struggling. But if you look at like Asda, Tesco, this is our superstores, like a Walmart and things, they
yes,
can cope and they have a lot of money saved up and everything. They can survive for long term. But small businesses doing like a 10 to 15 million or like 100 million a year, for them it will be really, really hard for to survive. And those doing
yeah,
like over billion in revenue, for them it's going to be easier probably, if they have the kind of money and everything on the side, and also government helping them out because they are biggest retailer in the whole UK. But small and medium-sized businesses, they're going to suffer, and also like normal people, because everything prices gone up. Our inflation rate this year probably 4%, so you can see like how much it increased. So every £100 we spend, the £4 extra right now. This thing happened like I think 2 months back. We had a shortage of fuel, so our
a shortage of what?
oil, petrol,
Oil.
gasoline, and
Yes.
everything. So we had to wait about 4 or 5 hours to fill the car of gas. So it was really, really hard because shortage of the thingy, lorry drivers. So we have 100,000 shortage of lorry drivers right now, the whole UK. And government trying their best. They came on a one point like army. They're gonna put army up so they can do the lorry driving shortage filled up. So yeah, and they're trying to right now sponsoring European Union's lorry drivers from different countries like Italy, Spain, Germany, things like that. And they saying they don't want to come back anymore because why you sacked me from our job in the first place, and why you want us
Wow.
back. Yeah, so it's like a conflict is happening right now. I don't know what they're actually doing. I haven't noticed last couple of weeks news, so let's see what happens. It's an interesting time for us. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. What a disruptive time.
Yeah.
Worldwide. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we're seeing this happen. So after like your businesses, about 2015, you decided to not to carry on with that. How
Yeah.
does it end up like? Did you guys become a bankrupt, or did you just sold it, or how did you just stop the business?
We pretty much just dissolved it. It wasn't something we could we could sell.
Right.
There was a lot of proprietary information and really good things, but if you can't find a buyer,
Hmm.
it's just air.
Yeah.
So we just took a huge hit, and it was quite depressing. And you could write whole books and do whole
Yeah.
podcasts on what do you do when for the first time in your life you can't get out of bed. You're so
Yeah.
depressed and so devastated, and it's embarrassing. The other thing too, you especially if you've had early successes and you
Hmm.
have a sense of the pluses and minuses moving forward.
Yeah.
There's a rhythm to it of, you can have setbacks, but then it. But when you have a really big setback that you've never had before, it hits you differently.
Yeah.
It's like being in a successful marriage for 30 years and you think, I got this down pat, and then you're divorced. It's embarrassing. It's humiliating. And you've got no skills
Yeah.
for how to handle it. It's like you're a fish out of water.
Also,
So
you are like in your late 50s, right? So he was like about 59, 50 or something like that.
well, and for that's actually part of the embarrassment that I went through.
Mm.
Is like I should be back to being millionaire. I
Yeah.
should be, I should be, one of the guys, that was flying around the country first class again, and having a second home on the coast, and because you have friends that are your age doing that, and it's very humbling. And
Yeah.
then of course, I'm married, and she didn't sign up for this.
Mm.
She didn't sign up for drop in income. She signed up for great lifestyle that she saw. And suddenly, you're living very, very simple, and you have to get rid of a lot of, things. And so, it was not an easy few years, and then you're thinking, well, what else can I do? And there was
Yeah.
actually a moment when I thought, well, maybe I should go work for a corporation. And I started to put together a CV, and I thought,
Resume. Yeah.
yeah, and started contacting companies, and it like made me sick to my stomach. It really did. I just thought,
Yeah.
oh, I can't work for someone else who's telling me, how to do it. And then the idea of like only working for a small, if it was a huge income,
Yeah.
I thought, oh, then I could do it. But
Getting a job for entrepreneur is like committing a suicide, right?
I think so. Because
I
it's
felt that. Yeah.
oh. And I didn't know, am I really hireable? I thought I was, but I couldn't find anybody that thought, wow, you've done some really cool things. We want you.
Mhm.
So that made it even harder. So it was really during COVID
Yeah.
in the pandemic that, when you're at the bottom and you're thinking, what do why are you here? And I mean, this is really the way direction I went with it. Is I really believe that I was born, I don't know if
Mhm.
everyone's like this, but I was born to do something. And
Yeah.
there is this drive in me to teach people the power of plant medicine. It's so obvious to me, and especially in the realm of mental health right now.
Yeah.
In mental health, first of all, I just am so grateful that I am alive during this transformation, that now this fixed phrase in our vocabulary, in our lexicon, mental health, that word,
Yeah.
that didn't really exist even a few years ago in terms of being okay to talk about. It's still uncomfortable to
Yeah.
talk about it, but it's more comfortable. And I want to give people a similarity. I grew up in Wisconsin. I didn't know that. When you grow up in Wisconsin or where you grow up, you don't realize that maybe it's famous for something. Well, I didn't know this till literally decades later. But Wisconsin has more bars, more
Right.
pubs per capita than any other state. Didn't know that. I just thought, of course, there's a bar in every corner and everywhere in the world. This is the way it works. Now, I didn't come from a family of big drinkers. I was never a big drinker, but there was a lot of drinking going on. It was just
Yeah.
the nature of it. Well, I grew up in a part where if you drove home from a party and the person driving was drunk, it was funny.
Mhm.
And it was, it'd be laughed about in school, and in the pictures and stuff. And then he cracked up and drove over the mailbox, and it was funny.
Yeah.
So in America, it was kind of serious. There's people that die in it. We knew that, but it was still kind of like accepted, kind of wink, wink, nod, nod. And that's how it was until Mothers Against Drunk Drivers, MAD. It was an organization created by a mom whose son, I think, probably got killed by a drunk driver. He was straight and he got T-boned by somebody, and she transformed our country. Driving drunk, I don't know what it is like in Europe. Driving drunk now is not funny.
Yeah.
It's basically like wielding a gun at a party. There's no humor. There's nothing, and no one ever is going to go, look at Joe, he's waving his gun. No one drives drunk anymore, and it's acceptable. It's considered horrendous. If you see someone, everyone stop. Oh, whoa, get his car. Everyone, all that's changed. Okay. Right now, in mental health, there are two basic tools that are being used to help uplift mental health. One is talk therapy, psychiatry, therapists, so forth. Great. That's what we're doing right here. We're uplifting each other by talking through things. Can't criticize it. Excellent. The second tool is pharmaceuticals. That's the tool. Either very, very strong amphetamines or whatever the varieties that they have figured out. There's ones that tweak your brain chemistry. So to produce, the chemicals themselves do not produce those nutrients that the brain needs. It tweaks what's existing there. There's nothing in that pill that's actually giving the body the nutrients that it needs. Okay. Those are the two tools. Now, I will never criticize pharmaceuticals. Number one, I would never do that. That would be hard. So there's a place for everything.
Yeah.
But oh my God, it's 2020 and we still don't get the foundation of mental health. And that is the nutritional, that's the biochemical. And that comes from a set of plants, a very narrow set of plants that no one in Western culture even knows about. No one knows that there are a couple of plants in the world that actually give you directly the precursors to serotonin. No one knows that there are one or two, or maybe there might be more, but I'm not someone that knows the whole, I'm not a botanist, but there are a couple of plants that very effectively give you the precursors to dopamine. They're precursors to melatonin, the precursors that give you the uplift and nutrients that you need the choline, you need the neurotransmitters, you need these things that actually feed the brain. And the fact that we are not doing that to people who are suffering from mental health is a crime. It's an absolute crime. So if I had a mission in life, that would be it. Now, I actually started out because I was interested in entrepreneurship and I was interested in what happens when you get into the zone. Everyone knows what that feels like. You don't have to be an entrepreneur to motivate. You could be a runner, you can be a writer, you can be anyone that where all of a sudden painters, hours go by and you are so in it. It's like being in an otherworld experience. Well, that's a powerful state of mind for entrepreneurs when you're creating code, when you're creating ideas, when you're writing, when you're working. And that was really the essence of nootropics, was mental clarity, focus, motivation, removal of brain fog, clarity, mental clarity. It's like a boom in your brain. That was what I was interested in creating with the plants. And what I almost came across without even knowing that is those very plants, or many of those plants, also uplift the mental state, the mental wellness of the human being, the removal of depression, the removal of anxiety. So that's my passion. And so last year I said, I have to, what were the things that I did wrong in Brain Tonic? And one of them was the way we did it by putting it into health food stores, because it killed us. I mean, we're a small company. So that was that. But the second thing was that I was trying to make nootropics taste good. Well, here's the fact. Every one of those plants that I just talked about are bitters. They are alkaloids. They're terpenes. They're triterpenes. Those are some of the most bitter aspects of the plant kingdom. They're not sweet. They're, nootropics, effective nootropics are not a gummy bear. They're not a delicious drink. They are a very effective tonic. And effective tonics are bitter. So I realized in a fit of rage last year, I said, that's it. Screw it. I don't care if I hope people go, yeah, your product set's really, really good, but it tastes like crap. Good. And if you can't handle a little, it's like Swedish bitters. And there's probably a lot of people don't know it, but it's like the bitters. It's like learn to dig it. And for gosh sakes, mix it in water, mix it in juice, whatever you need to do, but get it into your system and then watch the effect. Because it's almost, within 10 minutes, people go, wow, what is this? How does that do that? This is not caffeine. This is not a stimulant. It's not. It's an ingredient. It's an ingredient, the nutrient that the body uses. So that's what I did. I actually came up with the phrase, embrace the bitter. And I went, oh my gosh, that's it. That's my thing. So that's what I did. And we created an extraordinarily effective brain tonic, and it's great. I'm very, very proud of it. And
so when did you start this new business? When did you launch?
It took me a lot longer than I thought to get out of R&D. That's for sure. Because in R&D you got to figure out, how do you mix all together? How do you make sure that it stays in emulsion? How do you make it that it is palpable? Not palpable. No, palpable is what you feel. Palatable. Sorry, palatable. We had to make it so that you squirt some in your mouth and it's good. It's okay. It's got some. We added some orange flavor. We added some lemon flavor. We put in a little bit of tiny little bit of a stevia. Give it a little softer feel to it. So it's good. And then we had to make it flow. We had to figure out how big. So that took about 9 months. But our first case of thousands of bottles came September 1st. So we've been out now 90, 80 some days.
Yeah, that's great.
Thank you.
And right now, are you selling directly from your site or something?
Only from the website. And the website is, you can go to Synaptic Scientific to find us. You can also, it's too long of a website, so I put takecognition.com. Takecognition.com. That's another one. They'll both point you there.
Okay, that's great. Yeah. And is it available everywhere in the world, or like just the US?
We're being quite successful with shipping it everywhere, and we've shipped it already. In our first 2 months, we shipped it to 12, 13 countries, and some of them were pretty out there. We got one that was, Italy. That's not out there, but we had to figure out how to ship to Italy. And lots of places: Australia, Canada, Europe. Lots in Europe. There's a couple in Germany. We got one to the Ukraine, and it's always you wonder, will it get through customs? Will do okay? But so far, 100%, we're doing okay. Yeah,
that's great. Yeah, so Scott, we're running out of time for this podcast. We wanted to go for longer, but time is restricted. So
I want to give your listeners a discount coupon. I'll have to mail it to you because I haven't set one up for you guys, but I'll set one up that'll give them 20% off. And especially if they're overseas, that'll help with the shipping. We've got a flat rate shipping, so we eat a lot of the shipping costs, no matter how many bottles they buy. It's $27. In fact, it costs us like 38, but that's okay. We want to get it out there. So, if I give them a 20% off this coupon, that'll soften some of that.
Yeah, no problem. We're gonna it's gonna come out like after 2-3 weeks later, the actual podcast. So we got plenty of time. I just put the link and the code for you. So no problem at all. If anyone wants to know more about you, how they can find you.
Yeah, go to the website, Synaptic Scientific, and then you just click on contact and it'll get to me, especially if you can say that you heard me through Russell's podcast. That'll be even better, and I'll treat you extra nice. I'll be able to say, hey, thanks for listening. I really appreciate that you were on his show, and I'll give them extra little things.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you so much for coming to the show and share your journey and obviously your mission as well. So I wish you good luck with your company and your rest of your life also. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on.
You're most welcome. So that's a wrap, guys. So thank you so much for listening. So you know how to find Scott and his website. I'm going to leave his promotional code and everything for you, so you can go and check out. So stay safe, stay healthy. Talk to you in the next episode. Thank you, guys. Take care.